The skies above Seraphis 3 burned, not with dawn, but with plasma. The Dreth ascendancy came without warning. Their ships like obsidian knives cutting through the upper atmosphere, shattering orbital relays and vaporizing defense platforms before a single distress beacon could escape. Seraphis was a young colony, 20,000 settlers, most of them farmers, teachers, and families. The Dreth weren't after conquest. They came to make a point. They descended in formation, their fleet commander broadcasting to the colony's emergency channels. "This world lies within Dreth dominion," hissed the translation, dripping arrogance. "Humans are trespassers. Evacuate or perish. You have 1 minute. No one could evacuate. There were no ships left to flee." When the minute ended, the bombardment began. Cities became shadows beneath descending light. The atmosphere screamed, igniting as orbital rails spat tungsten rods at relativistic speed. Every impact was an apocalypse. The last human voice broadcast from Seraphis belonged to a teacher named Leon Voss, her message caught in a debris-broken transmission. They came from the dark. "Tell Earth." The shadows were full. And then, silence. The Dreth commander, Arch-Executor Sarak, ordered his fleet to scour the remains. He watched as the colony's oceans boiled and its surface turned glass. He smiled. "The humans build too fast. They forget their place. Let this be their reminder." Seraphis III was erased from the maps. The Dreth logged it as a terminated infestation. And somewhere, in the depths of Sol Command's archive, that final transmission reached Earth. The mockery of the Dreth 3 cycles later. The Dreth ascendancy celebrated. Their high assembly convened above the twin suns of Dracul Prime, a world built of silver spires and arrogance. Ambassadors from allied empires gathered to congratulate them. The Dreth had humbled humanity, the upstart species, that had dared to challenge the galaxy's hierarchies. "Humans have bark but no fangs," said one. "Envoy, they cry for justice but hide behind treaties," another scoffed. Arch-Executor Sarak, the butcher of Seraphis, rose before the assembly. His scales glimmered beneath the crystalline dome. "We have shown the humans the truth," he proclaimed. "Their shadow is small, their courage hollow. The galaxy will see that Earth bleeds like any other world." The chamber erupted in applause. Laughter rolled through the ranks of empires who had long feared the humans' expansion. Sarak raised a chalice of liquid light. "To shadows," he toasted, "and to those foolish enough to think they hide power within them." But the laughter did not reach the deep space scanners posted on the galactic fringe. Because, far from the council worlds, something had begun to move. The quiet before the storm. For 3 years, Earth said nothing. No declaration of war, no retaliation, no fleet seen leaving Sol. The galaxy mistook the silence for surrender. They whispered that humanity's spirit had broken, that the death of Seraphis had cut too deep. But those who lived along the border of human space noticed things. Trade convoys stopped. Navigation beacons went dark. Outposts began to vanish one by one, their transponders found shattered and silent. Within the Solar Union, there were no public broadcasts, no grand speeches. The networks that once carried Earth's debates went offline. The core worlds fell into a cold, calculated quiet. In that silence, forges awoke. The shipyards on Luna burned white-hot. The orbital rings above Mars glowed like halos of fire. On Europa and Titan, production lines ran endlessly. Raw ice turned to fuel, ore to armor, silence to fury. The outer colonies spoke only in whispers. A phrase began circulating on the encrypted bands of traders and smugglers. "They're building in the dark." And deep within the Oort shadow, where even the sun's light barely reached, enormous constructs stirred, black as night, vast as continents. To most sensors, they appeared as empty space. To human eyes, they were fleets cloaked in the dark between stars. The shadows moved. The first Dreth outpost to vanish was the listening post at Tarlac Ridge. It was positioned along the human frontier, built to detect any sign of military buildup. Its last transmission was a burst of static and a single phrase: "Shadows inbound." When Dreth patrol ships arrived days later, they found nothing. Not wreckage, not debris, just a massive circular depression carved into the moon's surface, as if something colossal had hovered there, consuming all light. Then the disappearances spread. A mining convoy went dark near the edge of the Helios Drift. Dreth Scout Wing vanished between stars. Entire communication relays turned to static overnight. Reports poured into the Ascendancy's command net, all saying the same thing: There's movement in the dark. Sarek dismissed the panic. Tricks and illusions, he spat. Human ships lack the power to breach our borders unseen. But then, one of their long-range observatories captured something. It wasn't a ship. It was a shadow. A silhouette blotting out the stars, moving in absolute silence, its shape distorted by gravitational fields. The data feed caught only 3 frames before the observatory was vaporized by a lance of coherent light. Those 3 frames, enhanced and analyzed, showed the impossible. A vessel the size of a moon, covered in stealth plating that bent light itself, and on its hull, a symbol the galaxy hadn't seen since the fall of the First Human War. The sigil of the Sol Vanguard. Earth's fleets had returned. The voice of Earth, the Dreth Ascendancy's communication hubs lit up like fire. Dozens of fleets scrambled to respond, still believing they faced a few rogue ships, terrorists seeking revenge for Seraphis. But then came the broadcast. It wasn't encrypted. It wasn't hidden. It was transmitted on every known frequency, from radio to neutrino band. A woman's voice, calm, cold, utterly human. This is Admiral Leona Reese of the United Terran Armada. 3 years ago, you burned Seraphis III. 20,000 civilians, farmers, children, families, erased under your guns. You called it cleansing trespassers. Today, we answer. You looked into the shadows and thought them empty, but they were watching, waiting, forging. We are the shadow now, and we are full. The message ended. Across the stars, Dreth fleets prepared for battle. They expected skirmishes. They expected vengeance. What came was war. The emergence. They arrived like an eclipse. From the Oort clouds to the far edges of Dreth space, human fleets burst forth from the void. Carriers the size of continents, dreadnoughts sheathed in gravitational distortion fields, gunmetal ships that reflected no light and gave no warning. They moved like shadows given form, silent, precise, merciless. Each fleet bore the emblem of a shattered sun, glowing faintly on black hulls. Their weapons were not plasma or railguns, but something new, energy compression arrays that tore spacetime into ribbons. The first Dreth world fell within hours. The planetary shields, designed to withstand centuries of siege, melted in minutes. Cities dissolved under bombardments that left craters glowing white-hot for days. Every transmission from Dreth Command came with panic. They don't show up on sensors. Our weapons can't lock! They're inside our perimeter. And then silence. The human fleets moved methodically, system by system, planet by planet. They did not conquer. They did not occupy. They erased. For every human life lost on Seraphis, 1,000 Dreth perished. In orbit of the Dreth capital, Arch-Executor Sarak watched his fleets disintegrate. He screamed into his comms, demanding surrender channels, negotiation, mercy. But there was no reply. Only a single message blinked across his tactical display. For Seraphis. Moments later, a Terran dreadnought decloaked above his world, a shadow so vast it swallowed the twin suns. Its main cannon charged, a glowing spear of annihilation, Sarak whispered. They were supposed to be empty. The beam fired. Drakul Prime ceased to exist. Retribution. The war lasted 7 days. 7 days for humanity to dismantle an empire that had ruled for centuries. When it ended, the Dreth Ascendancy was nothing but memory. Its fleets turned to drifting ash. Its worlds rendered lifeless and silent. Across the galaxy, other powers watched in horror. The human fleets did not celebrate. They did not broadcast victory. They simply turned in unison and vanished back into the black, disappearing into the same shadows from which they had emerged. A single transmission marked their departure. The Terran Union acknowledges the end of hostilities. Let it be known, humanity does not seek conquest. But should you reach into our dark again, you will not find us waiting. You will find extinction. And then the shadows went still. Aftermath. The whispered fear centuries later. Travelers spoke of the empty regions where the Dreth once ruled. No ships dared enter those sectors. Navigation computers refused to lock courses, as if some deep code prevented it. Those who tried claimed to see things in the dark. Flickers of movement. Silent hulls drifting in perfect formation. The faint outline of fleets that should not exist. The galaxy began calling them the Phantom Armada. No one knew if they were still there. No one dared to find out. Among the elder races, a saying spread. A quiet warning passed from one empire to another. Do not test the humans. Their light is blinding, but their shadows are worse. In the archives of a forgotten Dreth station, long dead, Long cold, a fragment of Leon Voss's final transmission was found. The last words she ever spoke, restored from static and ruin. They think our shadows are empty, but they've never looked deep enough. And somewhere, far beyond the galactic rim, a human fleet drifted silently, black hulls gleaming faintly under distant starlight.